Joan Rivers said that Michelle Obama was a man before she died. When
was that a joke? I thought it was a joke.
I thought it was a joke too, but the way she said it wasn't like jokey. She was like, oh, come on, everybody knows Michelle Obama's a man. Like, remember that?
Yeah, like, would Big Mike kill you for that?
Well, I think she died because she had 1,000 plastic surgeries. But
Michelle, she should change her name to Misery Obama. That's really what I think of when I... Misery Obama never has a positive word to say. Never. Not about children, not about family, certainly not about her.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly recently shared a no-holds-barred take on Michelle Obama, digging into how media narratives have shaped her public image. With their usual mix of sharp wit and candid commentary, the two questioned whether the former First Lady's widespread popularity is built more on branding than on clear, consistent substance. They explored everything from her public messaging to how she's portrayed in mainstream media, pulling back the curtain on the carefully curated image that many rarely question. While the discussion was bold and unfiltered, it sparked a bigger conversation about public figures, media favoritism, and the gap between image and reality. Whether you agree or not, it was a fresh take that got people talking and questioning.
Thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for her.
Joe Rogan dove into his critique of Michelle Obama with the kind of energy he usually reserves for deep dives into politics or wild personal theories, focused, intense, and clearly baffled. He questioned how the media has built such a polished, nearly untouchable image around her. While many celebrate her as a cultural icon and best-selling author, Joe suggested the admiration sometimes feels more like marketing than authenticity to him. The image of Michelle as a universally beloved figure comes off more like a carefully managed brand than a reflection of real substance. He compared her public persona to a motivational speaker with a Netflix deal, polished, inspiring, but not exactly personal.
Salvador, who have already been deported, and not American citizens. Some the media has claimed are American citizens, but they're not. No American citizens. Anyway, it's just been so ridiculous, and the fact that she would try to parlay this into like, I'm so scared, but also super important, but also my daughters are brown, so they're also potential victims because everyone hates brown people, unless they could identify them as an Obama.
Joe Rogan kicked off his take on Michelle Obama's public image with the same intensity he brings when talking about elk meat or aliens, focused, slightly baffled, and full throttle to him. Michelle's persona felt like a perfectly staged performance, always composed, always smiling, like she was holding onto a secret the rest of the world just wasn't ready for. And that's exactly what bothered him most. He questioned how someone could give so many interviews, land Netflix deals, deliver polished speeches, and still manage to avoid saying anything genuinely risky or raw, and yet still be hailed as a voice of courage. His words were blunt. It's like someone playing chess against themselves, and the crowd is cheering like they just won a war. Joe challenged the image the media had built this untouchable queen-like figure and asked directly, is this real or just another carefully inflated media bubble?
Tim Dillon's video where he was saying that Michelle Obama should run for president. If she won, she could pull her out and China would just give up. I was wheezing. I couldn't breathe. Big Mike.
Big Mike.
Then Joe turned his attention to Michelle Obama's speeches, and with his usual mix of humor and bite, he dropped a line that had the audience laughing. Her speeches have the excitement of a hotel iron, totally smooth, completely predictable, and only useful when it's plugged in. The room laughed, but Joe was making a serious point. He argued that every sentence Michelle delivered felt like it had been filtered through 5 sensitivity readers, polished by 3 image consultants, and stripped of anything remotely bold. By a full marketing team, every word had to be uplifting even if it didn't really say much at all. In Joe's eyes, Michelle's presence wasn't inspiring, it was safe. So safe, he joked, it could be used instead of bubble wrap.
In the mix.
I'm so glad I didn't have a boy.
Yeah.
Because he would have been a Barack Obama.
It's like baby Barack. It would have been amazing.
Ooh, no, I would have felt for him.
She just borrowed our boys.
Yes, I got plenty.
Wow.
You catch that? She She's glad she didn't have a boy because he would have been a Barack Obama. And that's a hard pass for her.
Then came Michelle Obama's food crusade, and that's when Joe really let loose, turning school lunch into a national health mission, he said. Might have sounded noble, but the actual result felt more like a nationwide sadness experiment. Quinoa, broccoli, and vegetables that, according to Joe, looked like they belonged in a science lab, not on a lunch tray, were suddenly being forced onto kids' plates. This wasn't lunch, Joe joked. This was a cafeteria hostage situation, and while Michelle appeared on TV, smiling, and confidently claiming that kids were excited about carrot sticks, Joe pointed out that the real story was playing out elsewhere. Lunchbox black markets, he laughed, where fruit roll-ups were being traded like cigarettes in a 1940s prison. Kids were whispering in the halls, "Bro, give me a cookie, I'll trade you kale chips." Meanwhile, on national television, staged smiles, filtered footage, and what Joe mockingly called the quinoa propaganda machine rolling full steam ahead.
Okay,
Playing the one that
that's it.
seemed
This
like
is the one.
Or the first woman
We already
president.
have it with Obama, so let's just calm down.
Got it.
You know Michelle is a
I'm sorry, she's a what?
a transgender. We all know.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty funny how she said it.
Okay, we all
Joe leaned into a sharp critique of what he saw as a disconnect between Michelle Obama's public messaging and her personal lifestyle. He questioned how someone living in luxury, residing in lavish homes, flying privately and earning large royalty checks could position themselves as a symbol of struggle. It wasn't success that Joe took issue with. In fact, he respected ambition and hard work. What bothered him was when privilege was presented as hardship. In his view, Michelle Obama didn't rise from the ashes. She was simply handed the tools and a safe space to build a fire. Her portrayal of adversity, he felt, resembled an overly dramatized story, something like complaining about losing Wi-Fi in a guest house. Then there were the books. Joe chuckled at how Michelle's publications often said very little, in his opinion, yet were treated as if they were groundbreaking political texts. He described reading them as being stuck in a never-ending conversation with someone who just discovered self-love and couldn't stop talking about it. He joked that many of the chapters could be summed up as, "Feel good, drink water, and remember your power." That's fine, he said, if you're selling scented candles, not trying to shade cultural dialogue. Joe ended his segment with a pointed commentary on the media's constant fascination with Michelle's fashion, fitness routines, and even her eyebrows. He argued that this wasn't mere admiration, it bordered on idolatry.
What's happening to immigrants?
I mean, I travel in a 4-car motorcade. After all, I'm Michelle Obama. She actually says this. And then she says, but, I worry for my girls because, not that much because they are sort of recognizable, but I'm worried about them.
So it's not the fear for myself anymore. I drive around in a 4-car motorcade with a police escort. I'm Michelle Obama. I do still worry about my daughters in the world, even though they are somewhat recognized.
They weren't just analyzing a public figure, they were elevating one beyond critique that Joe believed was the real issue. Michelle Obama wasn't merely respected. She was treated as untouchable, and when someone is surrounded by that much protective praise, it often suggests that the substance beneath may not withstand open scrutiny. Then came Megyn Kelly. She approached the conversation like a seasoned attorney, entering a courtroom confident, composed, and armed with a case so tightly built that the outcome seemed inevitable. Megyn wasn't interested in satire or spectacle. She brought facts, clear observations, in a calm but precise tone that cut deeper than outrage ever could. To her, Michelle Obama represented the pinnacle of political image management. Every aspect of her public persona felt carefully curated, constructed, refined, tested, and ultimately marketed like a premium lifestyle brand. In Megyn's view, Michelle wasn't spontaneous. She was strategic, and while that strategy had its strengths, it also began to feel performative when looked at more closely. Megyn began her critique by examining Michelle's consistent efforts to appear relatable, a word that, for Megyn, had become almost ironic. After all, Michelle lived in multi-million-dollar homes, vacationed on private islands, and spent more time in professional styling settings than many in the entertainment industry. The idea of relatable didn't quite aligned with the reality.
The country's almost back to normal before World War III. COVID was just so strange. We lost a lot of people during COVID, and most of them are still alive. Yeah. Before COVID, I would have told you that vaccines are the most important invention in human history. After COVID, I'm like, I don't think we went to the moon. I think Michelle Obama's got a dick. I think Pizzagate is real. I think there's direct energy weapons in Antarctica.
Every time Michelle Obama told audiences to just be yourself, Megyn Kelly couldn't help but picture the team of handlers, stylists, and consultants standing just off stage making sure every detail, down to her earrings, aligned perfectly with the lighting and teleprompter. In Megyn's view, if relatability were an Olympic sport, Michelle wouldn't even make the qualifiers. She then turned to what she called one of the biggest myths in modern political storytelling, the idea that Michelle never sought the spotlight. According to Megyn, that narrative didn't align with the reality of best-selling books, podcast empires, television deals, and a high-demand public speaking career. To her, it was like someone claiming to dislike attention while skydiving into a press conference under a neon sign that says, "Notice me." The humility, she argued, wasn't authenticity, it was strategy. Megyn also criticized what she saw as Michelle's tendency to speak from both sides of an issue. On one hand, Michelle portrayed herself as a unifier calling for kindness and understanding. On the other, she occasionally made broad generalizations that painted large segments of the population in a negative light, using a calm but firm tone that, to Megyn, felt more like a school principal scolding students than a national leader building bridges. To Megyn, this wasn't strength, it was calculated messaging. She argued that Michelle rarely took firm, independent stands on divisive topics, but instead positioned herself wherever the safest cultural winds happened to be blowing, while still giving the impression that she had weathered a political storm.
She died.
2014.
Okay, so it was 2014. So it was 2014 that she did that, where she, in 2014, so it had to be before 2014, because she was dead in 2014. So 2014 or before, she said Michelle Obama is a man. So this is like 10 years.
Have you ever heard that before her?
I never heard it, no.
I didn't.
Megyn Kelly then shifted her focus to Michelle Obama's legacy as First Lady. She raised the question, what were the tangible accomplishments? While there had been fitness campaigns, healthy eating initiatives, and widely shared hashtag movements, Megyn argued that much of it failed to result in long-lasting impact. The nutritional guidelines were eventually rolled back. The fitness programs faded from public memory, and the speeches, she said, often felt more like emotional op-eds than substantive policy. Discussions more inspirational than instructional. Megyn criticized the media's portrayal of Michelle as a kind of philosopher queen, suggesting that her messages, while well-intentioned, were often no more profound than phrases printed on coffee mugs. You're enough, stay strong, love wins. Megyn wasn't necessarily disputing the value of the sentiments themselves, rather, she questioned why such surface-level affirmations were being treated as intellectual milestones. In her words, if this was considered deep thinking, then the standard for insight had been set so low it had become a tripping hazard. She also challenged what she saw as cultural pandering moments, where Michelle leaned into identity politics when it was favorable, yet withdrew into general platitudes when real controversy emerged. To Megyn, Michelle managed to adopt the roles of both fighter and victim, navigating between strength and grievance in a way that felt more like performance than principle. It was a balancing act Megyn described as not only exhausting, but ultimately insincere.
Free Obama does not want to run for office. Misery just wants to sit and talk about how miserable she is. And honestly, when you see the full parody tomorrow, you'll laugh. Like I started bursting out laughing a couple times because it seems impossible. Like it seems like I'm being too mean. But then we've interspliced the actual Michelle Obama saying these exact things. Like that we didn't have to make it up.
Megyn argued that genuine leadership doesn't require theatrics, just honesty. And honesty, in her view, was the one thing Michelle Obama consistently sidestepped in favor of image control. She concluded her critique by targeting what she called the Michelle-obsessed media bubble, where every television appearance, podcast snippet, and magazine cover was treated with near-royal reverence. But beneath all the glamour, Megyn saw not leadership, but brand strategy. Michelle, she claimed, didn't lead, she floated. curated and posed. And yet, the public often mistook that carefully maintained image for real influence. Her commentary, she insisted, wasn't personal, it was analytical to Megyn. Michelle Obama had become less a symbol of meaningful progress and more an emblem of polished performance. And with her signature blend of sharp clarity and pointed delivery, Megyn aimed to pull back the curtain on what she believed was a carefully managed illusion. But the critique didn't stop there. Joe and Megyn together had stripped away the layers of media praise and public adoration, revealing a far more complex and uncomfortable portrait of a public figure. And as far as they were concerned, this was only the beginning.
Run for president?
Yeah, I've heard you say I think Michelle should run.
She could win. She could win, I think. I think if she ran, she could win.
Did you ever run for office?
No.
I have to ask you.
No.
No kind of office?
No.
I don't think she wants that, though.
No,
I don't
I
think she
guess.
wants that in her life.
Just-
The that they dealt with over the 8 years when he was president.
Because I've got these two young people at home. Being the kids, the daughters of a president, just think about it. Not so easy.
That job for anybody that really good at it.
Yeah, I trust the person who doesn't want the job more than the
Yeah.
person who wants the job.
It's not something that I'm interested in or would ever do. Ever.
Joe Rogan circled back like someone who suddenly remembered the most important part of the story. He wasn't finished examining what he saw as a strange cult of personality surrounding Michelle Obama. What frustrated him most wasn't just the deliberate branding, it was how readily the public embraced it. The near-automatic praise, the lack of critical questions, the almost worshipful tone in media coverage. To Joe, it felt like watching people line up to buy bottled tap water. Simply because a celebrity's face was on the label, he riffed on what he called the irony of Michelle being treated like a political visionary. Despite what he saw as her consistent avoidance of substantial, difficult conversations, she was always present for the photo ops, the soft-focused documentaries, the trendy podcasts, but noticeably absent when it came to taking clear positions. During moments of national significance, Joe compared it to showing up at a UFC fight with a yoga mat and still expecting to be crowned champion. Even her frequent messages about hope and unity didn't escape his critique. Joe felt they had the surface-level appeal of motivational wallpaper, sounding nice, even poetic, but lacking real substance upon closer inspection. He pointed out how Michelle could deliver 5 minutes of polished, well-worded platitudes and still receive standing ovations despite, in his view, saying very little of consequence. Then there was a social media machine. Joe highlighted the carefully curated posts, glamorous portraits, and life lesson captions that filled people's timelines, transforming Michelle into a kind of national figure of comfort, like a digital and offering affirmations instead of pie. He questioned the authenticity behind the candid family moments that appeared effortlessly intimate but were clearly shot with professional lighting and post-production polish. To him, it all seemed less like real connection and more like image management disguised as relatability.
This into like, I'm so scared, but also super important, but also my daughters are brown, so they're also potential victims because everyone hates brown people, unless they could identify them as an Obama, in which case we'd be fine because everyone loves us. But as you can watch the wheels calculate in a way that just confirms everything you believed about this.
Joe Rogan remarked that if anything felt less authentic than a reality show, it was Michelle Obama's Instagram presence. To him, it was a height of curated image-making, polished, packaged, and distant from everyday reality. Megyn Kelly wasn't finished either. She returned with even sharper focus, setting her sights on what she called the myth of Michelle as a political outsider. Megyn dismantled that narrative, calling it a long-running fairy tale. Outsider, she questioned. Michelle had spent over a decade at the very core of political and cultural influence, married to a two-term president, dining with global leaders, and partnering with some of the most powerful corporations in media. Megyn pointed out the contradiction in Michelle occasionally positioning herself as someone speaking truth to power, while simultaneously being one of the most powerful and platformed figures in the country. That contradiction, Megyn argued, wasn't just ironic, it was frustrating. Michelle had perfected the art of playing the outsider while operating fully as an insider, and too many people had accepted that framing without question. She concluded with a cutting observation: Michelle Obama didn't seem interested in leading through ideas or action. She wanted to be admired. She didn't confront the system. She styled herself within it, and while the cameras clicked, the applause thundered, and her name topped bestseller lists. the public was left with very little in terms of concrete positions or bold leadership. What they received instead, both Joe and Megyn argued, was a refined, appealing image, one that looked powerful but offered little substance beneath the surface. And that, they said, was a real critique not of Michelle Obama the individual, but of Michelle the myth, a media-crafted symbol so protected, so idealized, that the reality quietly disappeared behind the brand and in their eyes. This was only the beginning.